Hello, this is the Watchdog, and welcome back to Fun with Watches. If watches weren't fun, you'd only need one. Today we're going to do a comparison video. We're going to compare the Pagani design PD1728 homage to a Patek Nautilus, and we're going to compare it to the Parnsrpe homage to a Patek Nautilus. Both the 5711 version, I would say. Let's start out with the wrist check. I'm wearing the Pagani 9286 homage to a Patek Aquanaut, and since it's only 30 meters rated, you would call it an Aquanaut. And Greg was wearing my Timex Ironman, which is 100 meters rated, and will go in the water. I asked Grego if he thought it was right that the New Republic was using mind-altering equipment on former Imperial officers such as Dr. Pershing. He said, sure, a mind flare is a terrible thing to waste. Alright, let's take a look at the two watches. The Pagani design actually came in a box, like most Pagani designs do. And here it is. But the Parnsrpe did not come in a box. The last Parnsrpe I got did come in a box, and it was very similar to the Pagani design. But no box here. The only thing it came with was just the watch. And the only thing I have with it is I have the extra links in a little Ziploc bag, and that's it. Let's start out with the price. Right now, the big AliExpress sale is going on, so I didn't look up current prices. I'm just going to tell you how much I paid for them. I paid $64 after tax for the Pagani design, and I paid $72 after tax for the Parnsrpe. So the Parnsrpe is a little bit more expensive. Usually it's the other way around. Usually Pagani design is more expensive than the Parnsrpe. Alright, now let's look at the dials. We both have teak dials, and they're both blue, but man, look how much bluer the Parnsrpe is than the Pagani design. And in fact, the Pagani design, if you look at it straight on, it looks almost gray. You have to look at an angle to see some blue in it, where there's no issue about the Parnsrpe. It's definitely blue. Then the Pagani design just has the logo, and the Parnsrpe just says Parnsrpe. Parnsrpe, their logo sucks, so they usually don't use it on the actual watch. And then both say automatic on the bottom. Then look at the bezels. The Parnsrpe actually looks like a Nautilus bezel, kind of shaped like a porthole. This Pagani design, the cutout in the middle looks like a Nautilus, but the outside is completely round. So it's kind of not very, the bezel just looks odd since it's round. Then they both have applied lume indices, but as you can see, the Parnsrpe, they're just a little bit bigger. And then they both have loomed hands, and the Parnsrpe, the hands are just a bit bigger. And neither one has a loom second hand. And the Parnsrpe has a date where the Pagani design does not have a date. Here, let me get that out of the way so you can actually see the date. Always seems to happen when I'm doing a review. Alright. See? Date. And it's got a border and everything. A real Patek 5711 has a date. So why they left one out on this Pagani design, I don't know. It just seems odd that they left out a date. Alright, now let's look at the crowns. The Pagani design has a signed crown, and the Parnsrpe has an unsigned crown. They're both screw downs, but the Pagani design you get 100 meters of water resistance, but the Parnsrpe you only get 50. And neither one gives the water resistance on the dial. The Pagani design gives the water resistance on the case back. The Parnsrpe, you just have to look at the AliExpress ad. And there's no mention of the water resistance on the watch itself. Then let's take a look at the case. The Parnsrpe actually has this little edge thing that goes in, which actually looks like a real Patek. And also the crown guard is like that too. But the Pagani design, it's all one piece. The crown guards and this thing, this is all part of the case. So this looks more like the real thing. And also too, if you look at the Parnsrpe, it looks a hair bigger than the Pagani design. But if you look at the sides though, the case itself is a little bit thinner, but the case back's thicker because of the display case back. Otherwise, this would be much thinner than the Pagani design, but since the case back sticks up so much, they're about the same. Now, speaking of case backs, the Pagani design does not have a display case back, but it's a very nice case back. Gives the name and the logo and the model number. The Parnsrpe gives a display case back, but there's no writing on the edge at all. And once again, there's no model number for the Parnsrpe. They call it a Nautilus in the ad, but we can't really call it a Nautilus. It's a Nautilus homage, so I call it a Nautilus or a Nautilus, but it is not a Nautilus. Then let's talk about movements. When I originally reviewed the Pagani design, I mistakenly said it was an NH35 because it really seemed like one, but it is not. It's a Seagull ST6, which is, of course, Chinese made. Now, don't get all bent out of shape, though. When it comes to Chinese made movements, Seagull is probably the best of the bunch. And not that the ST6 is one of their really nice movements, but it's not a piece of junk either. In fact, an ST6 on AliExpress will cost you about 16 bucks, and NH35 will cost you about 22, so they're not totally dirt cheap movements. And the specs are very similar. They're both 3 Hz movements that hand wind and hack, and I'm not sure if this has a bidirectional rotor or not. Now let's look at the bracelets. As you can see, the Pagani design bracelet, the links in the middle just look a little bit nicer. They're more rounded and look more like the real thing, where the Parnsrpe is a little bit more rectangular. Then another thing different about the two is the Pagani design has screw pin adjusters. They're very small screw pin adjusters. You'll need a very small screwdriver. In fact, they're so small I thought they were push pins at first, and I broke a couple of tools trying to push them out. But the Parnsrpe just has normal push pins. Both watches, I removed 2 links to fit my 7.5 inch wrist, so about 8 inches is best you're going to do on this one without getting some extra links. Now let's look at the clasps. They both have friction butterflies, but the Pagani design has a sign fold over, and it just looks a little bit nicer than the Parnsrpe. But the inner workings of the clasps, I guess they're about the same. Yeah, they look fairly similar. And as I said in my reviews, I really wish both companies would just put push button clasps instead of these little fold over things. Yes, I know the Nautilus has a fold over, but so what? I'd rather have a function than it looking more like the real thing. Here's the Pagani design on my 7.5 inch wrist. It's a nice looking watch. I enjoyed wearing it. It just doesn't look as much like a Nautilus as the Parnsrpe does. But it still wears very comfortable. Just once again though, I only removed 2 links, so 8 inches is the best you're going to do. And here's the Parnsrpe on my 7.5 inch wrist. It too looks very nice. And once again, it's a hair bigger. And it's a lot bluer, that's for sure. So if you really like blue, then this might be a no-brainer here. Here we are in the loom room. When I did the reviews, both of them did not have very impressive loom. But let's see which one of the two wins. As we speed up the time, we see the watches are fairly even. The Pagani design has a little bit better index loom, but I would say that the Parnsrpe has a little bit better hand loom, and of course hand loom is more important than index loom. So I say the Parnsrpe wins. Alright, there you have it, side-by-side comparison. And considering that both watches are fairly similarly priced, the Parnsrpe is just a hair more. If your goal is to have a watch that looks like a 5711 Nautilus, then the Parnsrpe is just your better choice than the Pagani design. About the only thing I think the Pagani design does better is the bracelet. But everything else is the Parnsrpe is the clear winner. Well, thank you for watching my comparison video of the Parnsrpe Nautilus homage and the Pagani design PD1728. And I will be back with another review or unboxing. Be sure and like and subscribe to my channel. Bye.